It all started with a spark. A flash of blue gold. Rift energy. It was supposed to be the solution to all our problems. Turns out, it's also the source of them.
Even if you don't remember WarHawk from those PS1 launch days, odds are you're aware of the hyper-ambitious 2007 reboot for PS3. Given the decade in between those titles, the difference between those two flight combat games were nothing short of night and day.
I don't like mysteries, Corporal. They have a way of killing people.
And while the futuristic overhaul might make the spiritual successor Starhawk appear drastically different on the surface, it's actually a testament to how much Sony's learned about making a killer multiplayer-driven flight combat game in the last 5 years. Starhawk is a major improvement over its predecessor. For starters, the game comes with a ton of new real-time strategy elements that not only offer an added layer of depth and give Starhawk a thoroughly unique identity, players will find a far larger variety of things to do and explore. PS3 WarHawk players will no doubt remember the game coming with a fairly steep learning curve, but thankfully, Starhawk has seen fit to throw in a short single-player campaign that essentially functions as a long tutorial for the ins and outs of the multiplayer. The story is told primarily through animated cutscenes, where we see a Wild West world set in space. Cargo ships reflect the designs of trains, characters wear bolo ties, and even dusty backwater towns appear. You know what? It's not entirely dissimilar from the galactic frontier we all loved in Firefly. Hold on, let's see if that holds up.
Emmett, glad to see you. Jonas, you just got here, I know, but there's no rest for the weary.
Yep. Anyway, Starhawk's brief 5-hour single-player campaign may not be enough to satisfy in its own right. However, it does a fantastic job of introducing new players to gaining rift energy from the humanoid enemies called scabs, and is a fairly essential way of making sense out of some of the more complicated vehicle mechanics and base-building fundamentals you'll need to know in the multiplayer. Speaking of which, the multiplayer is the main event in Starhawk, where up to 32 players battle it out and capture the flag, deathmatch, team deathmatch, and zones game modes. Rather than finding weapons, ammo, and vehicles scattered around the map like in Starhawk's predecessor, players will have to build structures that spawn resources. Defensive walls and turrets can also be constructed, which come in handy for protecting the team flag and creating choke points. Coordinating with your team is almost essential to get a win, since plenty of time and resources can be wasted if everyone on the team ends up building the same structures. The greatest strength of Starhawk's multiplayer is that it supports diverse playstyles. Defensive players can spend time building bases and team flags and domination points, while offensive players can jump in a vehicle and toss themselves headlong into the fray. Vehicles like the Ox Heavy tank provide an insane advantage in firepower, while the Hawks have you zipping around the map bombing enemy bases and dogfighting for air superiority, all of which makes for multiplayer battles every bit as intense and unpredictable as they are massive in scale. However, even individual accolades like getting epic multi-kills from cluster bombing an enemy base or landing a drop pod on an enemy's head to earn extra experience points are unbelievably gratifying. We found ourselves enthralled by Starhawk's highly distinctive multiplayer and had a blast simply causing as much chaos as possible. Every vehicle is fun to control, and the shooting works as well as any other third-person shooter. Most of the disappointment comes from playing with a team that doesn't work well together, since that'll virtually guarantee getting scraped in a match. Fortunately, Starhawk makes it easy to play with like-minded folks with a built-in clan creation system and team calendars, which will no doubt be an absolute godsend for hardcore players.
I didn't come all this way to quit now. I'm seeing this out to the end.
The moment I stepped foot on that dirt, I remembered why I left.